All right. Well, welcome back to the Low Port podcast, everybody. This is me, Josh, again. Tim Herron can't join us. He's on another cocaine frenzy in Tijuana. So instead, joining us tonight is actually my dad, Matt Zalweg. So, hey, Dad, how's it going?
Hey, Josh, good to see you again. Be fun to talk and be part of the podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for working through the Zencaster issues we had. But you're in now, and we're recording, so awesome. Obviously, we have a long history, but our history with shooting is probably more recent. I know, like as a young kid, you showed me the fundamentals of shooting, especially with long guns and just a little bit of pistol. You even took me hunting a few times, and so I kind of got introduced to shooting through you. Well, not kind of, I certainly did. Um, and in recent years, though, as in like the last two or three, maybe, you've kind of gotten
Hmm.
into the competition shooting side of things, I think, through me. And so, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about, why you're even doing this silly competition shooting stuff?
Well, you made that very nice pistol for me, and it seemed a shame that a pistol like that was meant for competition. And you'd already been competing for several years, so I thought, gee, what do I got to do to get involved with this? As a career military person, I had a lot of handling of firearms, and let me tell you, it was quite a learning curve coming to USPSA.
Yeah, I think a lot of people experience that. It's not that you're not necessarily a good shooter or this or that, but kind of the meaning of water is the confluence of marksmanship, doing that at speed, mixing in movement, remembering your stage plan on sometimes complicated stages, shooting at moving targets, dealing with the pressure of having an audience. All of these things make what's honestly a simple task, aligning sights for a red dot against a target and pressing a trigger cleanly, a lot harder than it would seem on paper. And so you've been learning that, you've been experiencing that now for a couple of years, and so uh, what do you think about it? And you've persisted with it. Like you took a little break, but maybe it was 2.5, 3 years ago. You kind of started doing matches after I sent you a gun that I built for you, and
Correct.
you took a little break, and you're kind of back into it again. And so there's kind of a lot to walk through there. But let's actually start with the gun I built for you, why you liked it, and how that led you to a match.
Well, the gun that you made me is a STI 1911 single stack because I'm in New York, so you have to have you can't have more than 10 rounds. So you made that specifically for me, and it fit my hand so nice, and I have smaller hands, um, and it,
I
it
don't. For everyone
it was
listening, I have huge hands.
I
I want that on the
know.
record.
So it just seemed, I was having fun just shooting it around,
Yeah.
and I thought, heck, why not? So I told you, and you pointed me in the direction I needed to go to find, my local clubs and get involved with USPSA, which I did. I persist with it because I have a lot of fun with it. I'm by no means uh, terribly good at it, but I'm trying all the time to better myself, um, and take advice from people that can help me better myself. But I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think that's the key thing. Is if you're
Hmm.
doing something you're not having fun, you're not going to continue doing it.
Yeah.
I am having fun. I've since bought another pistol that you know of. That was a little, just about a year ago now. Um, so I now have the two pistols for competition. Um,
So what
and
did you buy as a second pistol?
I bought a Walther PDP with a 4.5 inch barrel. Um,
Okay.
it's It's the plastic. It's not the steel frame, but I'm enjoying it. And I've had some issues with that. Um, we'll call them growing pains between me and and my handling of the gun.
Sure. So why did you want to buy that Walther?
Well, the 1911 is iron sights, and I went for a gun. My vision was not good enough that close. I have excellent far vision, but when I'm holding a rifle or a pistol up in front of me, I can only make out one of the sights, and that one not very well at all. So it's time
Yeah.
to make the switch to go to a red dot. Um, and there's no shame in that, you know.
No,
it,
not at all.
it it's helped me greatly to get on target and remain on target.
Well,
Um,
not only is there no shame in using a red dot, it's actually the by far common and popular thing for people to shoot now in USPSA.
yeah, that's I notice that a
The
lot.
Yeah, the iron sight divisions are it's sad. It's kind of sad from a nostalgic perspective, but it's exciting from the perspective of technological advancement. But yeah, everything with a red dot, those divisions are becoming more popular,
Right.
and they're popular because it's just easier to shoot. With sights, you have to align a rear sight to a front sight and superimpose that against an image of a target. With a red dot, you literally just put the dot where you want to hit on the target. So it's simpler visually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you get more feedback when you're shooting, so you actually learn faster when you're shooting a red dot. And so you get to enjoy better marksmanship and faster improvement, I think, when you shoot a red dot. So there's all those enjoyment factors um, from the shooter perspective. And then beyond that, like for people like yourself who are getting a little bit older, and you're losing the ability to accommodate and pull in that focus to see close things. Well, it doesn't really matter with a red dot because you can just have far focus the whole time. The red dot's focus to infinity, so you have far focus. You're just looking at the targets, and the dot is there, crisp, beautiful, and you can just hold that. You don't have to ever look at something close like a front sight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's it.
it opens up the sport, or what it does make the sport more accessible because I think to some extent it just makes shooting easier, but it allows people to shoot longer and later into
Yes.
their lives, which is really
That's yeah. It's keeping the older shooters involved. Whereas before, if it was just iron sights, they kind of fade from glory. Uh, but they've gotten so popular now that pretty much everybody. I mean, we have a lot of new shooters at my club um, all the time. Every month, two or three new shooters, and
that's
they're all
awesome.
pretty much coming in with red dots right off the bat because they're coming and checking out your guns, which I like to let them if they're interested in what I have. I love to let them look at it and ask questions,
Yeah.
and they can handle it and see what it feels like to them. Because that's the whole thing with handguns is, as we were talking about hand size before, you have to find something that fits you. If it doesn't fit your hand, you're not going to be able to shoot it well. So you have to, be comfortable with that. And sometimes that takes longer than others. I mean, for me, with being in the military, it was, a Beretta all the time. That's all we got. Beretta,
Yeah.
Beretta.
That
You
must
get
that
kind of
must have
used
been
to it.
tough for you. If for smaller hands, Berettas are tough because they have kind of a shorter grip, but they have a very wide grip. And so if you
Yes.
have a smaller hand or shorter fingers, it's hard to reach around to that trigger. And then going beyond that, Berettas are a double single action. So that first trigger pull is going to be in double action, which means that basically the trigger is further out because as you're pulling it back, you have to pull the full length of the hammer to compress the hammer spring, let the hammer fall and shoot. And so that's a really long trigger reach. So for people with smaller hands, that would be really tough. So I'm guessing you're no
Yeah.
fan of the Berettas.
Well, they were tough, but it was the only thing we had, which is why when uh, I wound up getting that Firestar, the Inner Arms Firestar was for a gun that I could handle easier in my flight suit, in my flight vest, because I'd have
So
the
why did you
Beretta
buy
and
that?
I could have that.
Because you didn't explain like why you bought that. I'm just curious.
The Firestar, I
Hmm.
I bought that because I was on the deployment list to go to Afghanistan, and as a helicopter crew chief, flight engineer, uh, I just wanted something more than an M4 and a
Mm.
Beretta. I just wanted something that um, was smaller, fit my hand better, and just to have a little more rounds in case we went down. Chinooks are a big target. So,
Yeah, they've definitely been shot down, unfortunately, a few times.
yeah.
So
Then that was the whole impetus behind getting the Firestar. But, prior to that, I had the CVA revolver that I built, the black powder revolver, and that was a Christmas present from your mom. So
that's a cool one. That was a kit gun, right? So you like built it and blued it, and it's a
yeah, it
little
was
cap and ball Civil War kind of revolver deal.
exactly. Yep, yep. And I learned a good bit about it building it because there was no finishing to it really. Everything was very rough cut. So just to get everything smoothed out, so you could glue it and line everything up, it was all test and adjust, test, fit, adjust, and then one day I was done.
It's a
I
cool
tied it
pistol
to
for
a
sure.
yeah, tied it to a board to pull the trigger the first time, so it didn't blow up in my face.
Better safe than sorry.
Well, yeah. Some people said it might have been an improvement, but
I guess we'll
we
never
won't
know.
we won't dwell on that.
Yeah, I have a memory of the Firestar. I remember you trying to teach me how to shoot a pistol. I can't remember how old I was, but probably pretty young. And I could not hit a stump at whatever distance we were at, but it wasn't too far. And so it's funny to think about that, and then think about where I am with my shooting journey now and where you are. And I think
Well,
it's very different.
you pursued it with a vengeance, like you do pretty much anything. If you're going to do something, you want to do it and be the best you can possibly be at it. And you learned a lot. And my gosh, look at the way you shoot. I can only wish to shoot that well. So,
I'm sure you could, but it's
well,
funny because like yes, I shoot pretty good. Like I'm a master class shooter now in two divisions. I made open master after last week's match, so now I've got limited master and open master. Knocking
congratulations.
on the door in carry optics too. Um, honestly, I feel like I really want to be a GM in one division, so I'll keep working towards that, I guess. But that's a tall order. GM is really hard, um, at least for most people. I know some folks get it really quick, but for most, it's a real slog. So I'm going to keep working towards that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's I found times where I've gotten really frustrated with the shooting journey, but uh, kind of you go through those times and over again, and then you kind of just realize, well, really, this is about fun. I'm not getting paid for it. Nobody really cares how good you are at this besides yourself. So you might as well
Right.
just make it a positive experience and enjoy doing it, enjoy getting better, have goals. Hopefully you meet them or at least are making progress towards them. And really that's enough. Um,
Right.
but the fun thing about it is really getting out and shooting with your buddies. For me,
Yes.
in Albuquerque, where I started doing the shooting journey, like most all of my close friends are all from the shooting community, and I love to go out on the weekends and shoot them. It's just an awesome experience.
Hmm.
And in Salt Lake City, I made when I lived there for a little while, I made again pretty much all of my friends through the shooting community,
Hmm.
and so I've said it on this podcast before, but kind of the connections you make go beyond just the actual shooting, and you meet great folks.
Oh,
And so for
yes.
me, for me, for
Yes.
me, that's a big part of it, and I try to enjoy them.
Hmm.
And especially, if you take it a little bit farther and you want to go beyond local matches and go and shoot, your state championship, this your section match, maybe even an area match, maybe someday nationals. Those are all things that are on the table for you. One of the cool
Mhm.
things of the sport is through practicescore.com, you can apply through open registration to even nationals as a pretty new shooter. There's D class shooters that go to nationals,
Mhm.
and they're not going to do well, but that's not really important. It's kind of a cool experience.
Well,
It's
it's
like
the
being able
experience
to.
and what you learn from it.
It's like being on the field at the Super Bowl, right? Like it's this is a small sport, and if you go to nationals, like you might not be competitive. I've gone a few times and I've not been competitive, but you get to watch the best people in the world shoot and do the same stuff you're doing, and you can see exactly how you measure up to them, and that's
Yeah,
kind of a cool thing. And if you can do it with your friends and they come along with you, that just makes it an even more
yeah,
special and fun experience.
yeah. Well, you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, and you're going to have fun because you already have a base to talk about. That's something that brings you together, and it's shooting, and there's a lot of great people that shoot. I mean, I have more friends shooting, I think, than I do outside of shooting at this point. So it's at
So it's
least
like
they're
two
people I
and
see
one.
every week.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, I might be up to three now. I don't know.
Or possibly 1-0. I guess that would be the extreme case.
So yeah, and the people help you all the time. At the range. Just this week, as I was mentioning to you earlier, I had a one of the guys that was shooting and doing the RO on the stages. He said, I can see your gun is flipping a lot. And he asked me what I used, and he said, well, this is what I use for my carry optic gun. Why don't you load up a magazine and give them a whirl?
So he gave you
Quite a,
his hand loaded ammo for you to try out.
yes, and it was a night and day difference. The muzzle flip was immediately reduced. Um, I stayed right on target, or well, like all my shots were in the A, and it was one of those setups where you're shooting 8 rounds into each target and moving to 4 different boxes. 8 A's with his ammo, and I went back to mine. It started getting spaced out a little bit, but mostly A's. But there's a
Yeah.
definitive difference.
But
So
but so you're shooting probably predictively in that case. So you line up the first shot, and then to put two on the target, you're shooting. You're basically lining up a sight picture and pulling the trigger twice as fast as you can. So you're not necessarily confirming that second shot. So with your ammo, the gun was lifting more, and so that second shot was less predictable because it had a
correct,
larger arc of muzzle traversal at which that second shot could happen at. And so with
right,
his ammo, it was flatter or whatever you want to call it, and so
right,
you
much
ended up
flatter.
with tighter groups in that predictive kind of
Mm-hmm.
shooting mode. So that's pretty cool. So why do you think his ammo was so different than yours?
Uh, he was using a different powder and than what I use, and I'm still learning at this because I've only been doing it. This is my third year, and I've just got stuck with the powder that had come um, with my reloading press from
Yeah, by
a
the way,
previous
you got a
owner.
very good deal on your reloading press with a lot of components from a local seller. So you
Yep.
cleaned up, even if maybe now you feel it's not the ideal powder.
Yeah, he was actually a fellow I went to high school with. I hadn't seen him since high school until I bought the press. But yeah, that was a great deal, and I like the precision and the thought process that goes into doing my own ammo.
Yeah. So
And
for you, so actually, sorry, I keep interrupting
no, it's
you,
okay.
but it's just funny because you love reloading, and I fucking hate it so much. I think it's so boring. I've actually taken a break from reloading for a few years just because I think it's horrible. But you absolutely
Yeah,
love it, and
yeah,
there's people in both camps. There's a lot of people like you who think it's really fun and like a part of the game that they enjoy, and then there's people like me who just like loathe every minute of it.
yeah.
So why do
Well,
you like it so much?
well. I think if I shot as many rounds as you do, I would hate it too. And that's just being honest, because then it becomes a lot of work. Um, I like the precision of it. I like the field work, the laboratory like work of it, and determining how many grains of this and this weight bullet. You know, what are the better primers to use, and then chronographing everything and seeing how it all fits into get my velocities, to get figure my power factors, and for the PDP being a smaller, lighter gun, uh, trying to figure out something that it shoots well. Where my current, well, not my current because I've started to change that over, but what I have been using for the past couple of years really wasn't helping the situation. It shoots great in the 1911 because it's got weight,
Mm-hmm.
but so going to I've gone to 147 grain bullet, and just working on almost daily working on different powder amounts. But then,
So you were shooting 124s or 125s probably before,
yep,
and
yep,
now you're testing at 147s,
correct,
and you're
and
looking at switching powders as well.
correct, yeah, and just
So
trying to
so what was your
go to
124 grain load that you were shooting for a while?
well, 124 grain blue bullets. I did use some at City also. And they chronoed the same at the same powder. I was doing 3.9 grains of HP 38
Which is the
and
same as
going
Winchester
for
231, I think.
exactly. And my overall length was just below 1.1 because they feed better in both guns actually. If I get above 1.1, they have a tendency to jam. And so I was running about 135 power factor, I believe it was. And but the burn of the powder, I guess, is from what I'm being told now, and it's all news to me being a novice reloader. Is that you want a faster powder than the 231 which will help soften it gets a bullet out faster. And then the other thing was I was crimping the bullets too tight, and so I had a lot of factors that were fighting me and trying to
So
figure out what they were.
lots of reloading lessons
Lots of reloading lessons. I still like it. Don't get me wrong. It's to me once again it's part of the job and it's fun.
for sure.
So
I mean, I disagree about fun, but I'm glad you find it fun. And honestly, even though I'm buying factory ammo now, like hand loading can be an advantage for competitive shooters because you can make that load that suits your exact preferences out of your exact gun, and
mm-hmm.
so you have that ability to make micro adjustments and really find what you like most of all.
Right.
But
And
but yeah, for uncompensated pistols like you shoot with your 1911 for single stack or your PDP for carry optics, usually faster powders work better because the pressure curve spikes earlier in time. And
mm-hmm.
so by the time the projectile leaves the muzzle, pressures are already like really falling off quickly. And so the blast of gas pressure, as soon as that bullet leaves the muzzle, is it's basically less volume over time because the pressure is lower. And so that push back of recoil is less. And similarly, for the same reasons, the slide velocity is less. So when that slide bottoms out at the end of its rearward travel, it's not going to pull up the gun as much, and you're going to have less flip because the slide is slower.
Yeah.
And so that's why uh, fast powders are good in uncompensated guns, and why heavy bullets are good in uncompensated guns. Because when you have a heavier bullet, you're using even less powder, and so
Mm-hmm.
generally, like that continues to reduce pressure at whatever time the projectile leaves the muzzle, and it continues to reduce slide velocity. So for uncompensated guns, that's the recipe. It's basically
Yeah.
the opposite when a gun has a compensator, because you want a lot of pressure when the projectile leaves the barrel and enters the compensator, so that that pressure can act on the compensator to basically drag the gun forward and down and compensate the
Oh,
natural inclination of the
okay.
gun to lift and push backwards. And so loading for like open is completely different than loading for almost
Yeah.
anything else. You want a slow powder, so pressure is high at later times, and you want a light bullet, so you have more powder, so the pressure is just higher to begin with. So, yeah, it's just interesting things about reloading.
So yeah, I figured I'll just try a couple different powders, and I'll wear out my old stock. I'll play with that a little bit to see what I can do with the 124s, because I still have a gross of 124 bullets that I need to shoot. So they might be my indoor bullets, and plinking on my home range, and for the competitions, I'll save the stuff that's going to shoot flatter.
Well,
It's going to be
I got to say, I'm green with envy because, the regular host on this show, Tim Herron, he's got a home range. You have a home range. I don't have a home range. It's quite frustrating.
well, yeah. Mine is small. I've got three silhouettes, and I've got one steel plate. That's what fits in there, and it's all logs because I'm here in the Northeast, and just a big log berm with huge logs behind it, and trees that are built into it. So nothing goes. Nothing can even think of getting through like the 24-inch tree trunks. So it works. It's a great place for me to go and test things without having to go to a range just to specifically do that. The ranges are,
I mean, it goes without saying that it's going to be very convenient to practice. But then when you're developing a load, that's super convenient too, because you can load one, two, three, four, five bullets of whatever load you like and go shoot it immediately and see if you're at the power factor you want and make adjustments right there. Usually people have to like load up a ladder of bullets and then go to the range, test it out. So it's just nice.
yeah. So like today, for instance, I had five of a different powder charge with slightly lighter powder charge on the 147s, and then I had five that I made last week that had like zero point 0.2 grains more, and I was firing them all through the chronograph and seeing what the difference is. And I liked less powder, and I was still making 130 power factor with the 3 grains. But I have the opportunity to do that. I put 6 loads in each magazine and just shot one through the chrono, hit the button to put another string on, and fired the rest. And so just to get the feel and see what works best for me. So I
Awesome.
find it
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's the advantage of reloading. You can tune every little parameter about that projectile to make it work to your preference and your gun.
Right. So
And we're talking about power factor, and not everybody might necessarily know what that is, but power factor is basically momentum. So in physics, momentum is mass times velocity. So how heavy something is times how fast it's moving. And different bullets, even within one caliber, can be different weights. So in 9 millimeter, common bullet weights are 115 grains, 124 grains, 147 grains, and then maybe some rarer, more exotic options too. A grain is some small amount of weight. I'm not sure exactly what it transfers to in grams or pounds or anything, but it's small. And so you can kind of pick like the weight of your projectile. And then based on that, like there's going to be an amount of powder that you need to load. And that can vary based on what type of powder you're using. How fast or slow burning it is will affect the velocity you get. And so there's a lot of variables in there. But those are all the things you can tune and reloading to make a bullet that feels really nice shooting out of your gun for your grip, etc. So it's basically mass times velocity, grains times feet per second is power factor divided by 1,000 to make it a small number. And then for USPSA, you have to, in any division, make what's called minor power factor, which is 125. So if you shot a 125 grain bullet, it would have to be moving at 1,000 feet per second to make minor power factor just by the skin of your teeth. And then usually you'd load a little bit extra powder so that maybe you're shooting 130 power factor, so that on the average, when you're shooting a bunch of bullets, because they're not all going to be exactly the same velocity, your average is above that minimum power factor. And so people are always trying to ride that line, and that's a big part of reloading.
It's a science,
For sure.
and it's different for every individual. Basically, people have powder preferences, they have bullet preferences, so everybody does their own thing, kind of. But like shooting, like-minded individuals, we get together and talk about it, come up with great tips. So
For sure. And so you're doing all of this in upstate New York. And I think it might surprise some people that there's a shooting scene at all in upstate New York, where we all know like gun laws are pretty bad, becoming worse, pretty draconian. But you're able to go shoot matches, and obviously there's a community around you doing that. So why don't you talk a little bit about what it's like shooting behind enemy lines, I guess, or at least in an unfriendly environment.
well, once again, New York State is not a gun-friendly state anymore, but there's still a lot of shooters in
Well,
the
it must
state.
be really safe then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what? It's
No,
not? That's so odd.
no, because they take the guns from the people that
Wait,
are law-abiding, and
you're
they
trying to
don't
tell me
do
criminals
anything.
break the laws?
Yeah, well, that's obviously new math to the politicians, but so, but on I have three clubs, actually four clubs, within like 30, 45 minutes from here. My club that I belong to, we have 48 shooters every Wednesday night. So and that's just at my club.
So you guys
And
shoot every week. You'll shoot
every
every Wednesday, and you get
every
48
Wednesday.
people.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
And that's there's people have their 2011s and everything. You can have the guns. You just have to have blocked magazines that take no more than 10 rounds. So when we Barney to during the make ready, we wind up with 11 rounds in the gun, and that's the max you could ever have.
That's allowed though, right? That not
Yes,
only is that allowed in USPSA, that's allowed in New York too. The magazine capacity is 10, but
right.
you can have a round in the chamber,
You
so you can have
yes,
11.
right, right. So it's I think I'm kind of seeing more people, younger people, coming to the ranges now. I mean, it's really since the laws have gotten tougher. I think it's bringing more people out that want to learn stuff and how to actually. I mean, there's no better way to get familiar with your gun than to be accurate and have to be able to move. I mean, talk about home defense. These are all the skills that you're learning with USPSA. It's you know, it's not like, okay, this person coming in is going to have a 25-yard target on their chest with a bullseye. That's not how it happens. You have to
Right.
train as you fight, and this is just a great learning tool for people to feel a little more self confident about their handling of the guns, and they're competitive. I mean, we've got several new women that have joined also, and let me tell you, they're pretty good shots. They're just
Yeah,
interested.
I've been very frequently beaten by not only women but junior females. So literally,
Yep.
girls have beaten me,
Yeah.
which is in one way sad. from my perspective. But I'm happy for them, and I think it's really
Yeah.
cool that we have a sport where people can learn like really valuable self defense skills, no matter who or what they are, and it really doesn't matter. You don't have to be like a big, huge, strong, burly dude to be good at this, which is a really cool thing
Nope,
too.
not at
It
all. It's
really basically anybody can enjoy the sport and get good at this sport. So it's kind of a there's not a lot of gender or whatever barriers to this.
yes,
If you come
yeah.
out, you're gonna have fun, and you have the capability to get good at this. You don't have to
It's a
be
yeah. It's no
6 foot.
discrimination.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. Doesn't matter what size you are, or you can do it. I mean, we've got people that are, oh my gosh, 6'8", 6'9" tall, and then we've got people that are
Jesus.
maybe 5 foot. It's like we
Yeah.
got the whole shooting match.
Ha ha. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I snuck it in, but yeah, it's a great thing, and it's once again like-minded people. They're interested in firearms. They're interested in being more familiar with them, and this is a great way to do it. And I've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm still unclassified, and I'm
But
shooting
hold
for the
on.
fun.
Go back. So 3 years and still unclassified. So
Correct.
people might not know what that necessarily means. So when you shoot USPSA, USPSA is an organization. It's United States Practical Shooting Association. And so you can go shoot local USPSA matches, which are like pistol matches, without joining. But if you do join, usually after a few matches, you'll earn what's called a classification. And what is that? So at a local match, usually you'll shoot 3 or 5 stages or something like that. And probably one of those is going to be what's called a classifier stage. So a classifier stage is basically a standard stage that USPSA as an organization publishes. And so no matter where you are around the country, you can set up that exact same classifier stage because they release the stage diagrams where everything is measured out very specifically. So you know exactly where to put the targets, the walls, or any other related props. So everybody around the country can shoot the exact same thing. They release new stages. They tabulate data on those stages for how people are shooting it. And then they set like thresholds. And the thresholds define what class of shooter you are. So when you start USPSA, you're a U shooter or an unclassified shooter. And once you've shot 4 classifiers, you get what's called a preliminary classification. And so the average of those first 4 classifiers you shoot becomes your class. So based on the percentage, anywhere from 0 to 100%, you can be D class, C, B, A, master, or grandmaster. And then as time goes on, you continue to shoot classifiers, and there's some rules about which ones count, which ones don't. But basically, the best 6 out of your last 8 classifiers are going to count to your score, and you can continue to march up in classification as time goes on. And so it's interesting that you've been shooting for a few years and you're still unclassified because usually USPSA matches have at least 1 classifier per match. So if you shot for 3 years, you should have shot at least 4 classifiers by now, probably more like 30.
Well,
If you think
I have shot 2, but they were a while ago, and I uh, got that adrenaline thing going and kind of forgot what I was doing, and put more shots into a target than I was supposed to, and and it was a little bit of an embarrassment. So I've kind of
been
stayed away
there,
from the
been
classifiers.
there, yeah, yeah.
And basically, what I do every Wednesday night is a practice match. And they do have classifiers set up occasionally, not all the time because it's only 2 stages indoors. Because we get cold winters here, so we got 2 indoor stages every Wednesday. And so when they're there and it's a practice match, I shoot them to try and get my head where it needs to be because there's a lot to remember. With the classifiers, and you know classifiers specifically spell out how you engage them, the targets, where you stand to engage them from, how many shots in each target. Where usually, if you're going into an array on a normal stage, paper, you're putting 2 rounds. Next paper, 2 rounds. Steel, one. With the classifier, they could be saying, okay, there's 6 targets. You're going to stand in this box backwards. You're going to turn around. You're going to shoot each of the 6 targets with 1 round, reload, and then do them again. Well, I was kind of new at it, and I was used to
And
two of everything.
maybe with one hand only, your dominant hand or your non-dominant hand, etc. So it can
Correct,
get pretty
correct.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, that's true. You want to practice, strong hand and weak hand. Uh, at the practice match last week, it was the last array was weak hand. I'd never shot the PDP weak hand. I don't think I shot in the 2011 or the 1911 weak hand. So my first shots left-handed on either of my 2 competition guns, and people were accusing me of sandbagging because I shot better with my weak hand than I do with 2.
Well, the same principles apply, right? Sights
Correct.
aligned on the target, press the trigger without moving the gun. The problem is when you're doing it with a hand you've never done it before with. There's all sorts of problems, like trying to pull the trigger, but in the heat of the
Mm-hmm.
moment, squeezing your whole hand, pulling the gun off target, all those things. So it
Right.
sounds like you followed your process of marksmanship pretty good, even though you hadn't practiced it.
Correct. Right. With no live rounds. I only learned that it was uh, that stage diagram only came out about an hour before I left to go to the match. So I just did a couple, you know, did some dry fire, handing it off after a mag reload, and then presenting the gun and trying to keep it flat. And that's once again the nice thing about the red dot is as you're squeezing the trigger, you can see if you're squeezing your whole hand or you're making some other way making the gun move, jerking the
Yeah.
trigger.
It's really easy to see with the red dot any kind of input you're putting into that gun. And so
Yeah,
you can correct bad things more easily when you can diagnose more clearly. And that's what the red dot affords you.
right, right. It's a very good tool in dry firing. You can really see.
Speaking of dry fire tools, you recently just got yourself a whole VR rig, virtual reality rig, so you could play Ace XR, which is a practical shooting simulator that Tim and I have talked about on the podcast before. So, how about you talk a little bit about that? Because it's pretty fresh for you, right? Like this week you got it.
Well, I got it mid last week, but I was in the middle of an outdoor project, and but it was a foundation issue, so it required immediate attention to be done. So I didn't get into it as much. I mean, I shot a couple hundred rounds through it, and since then, it's been almost a daily thing where I put it on and I've set up the boundaries, and I shoot, and I'm up to I don't know 1,200 rounds now that I fired, saved like $300, but
Yeah,
it's an excellent tool.
you've broken even on the investment already. At
Yeah,
least the Ace subscription to get the because it
yeah.
well hold on, I've got the controller here. I don't think we've shown this on the podcast before, but it's easy to see with Googling, of course. But basically, this is a Meta controller. I have the older Meta 2. The Meta 3 one works as well. It's just shaped a little different. But then you get this actual gun type mount for it. So you can shoot and practice in a very similar way to actually doing dry fire. And then in the video game, your shots go where they go. And there's a trigger with a realistic like trigger break, prep, and reset. Um, and there's a whole aftermarket where they're 3D printing different gun modules, so you can have one that's more similar to your gun. Like this one's kind of
Hmm.
similar to. This is the factory one. It's kind of similar to a Sig P320, but you can have 2011s now, and Shadow 2s, PDPs, what have you. People are making 3D print files for it, so you can really dial this in.
Hmm.
It can be a pretty valuable training tool.
Well, I found that it's like when I first did it at your house with your set a couple months ago. It was I could visually see improvement as my speed went up and my power factor would go up, or not my power, my hit factor would go up, which is what you all want to strive for. Time and how your accuracy of hits give you that hit factor. And so I was quite interested in it, and then my wife got in touch with Josh and our daughter, and they bought me this for Father's Day, even though it's early. They wanted me to have it and get and get cracking to make me better. But it's a virtual headset, and you just engage targets just as you would at the range. And there's shooting drills, there's skill drills, fundamental drills. And it's quite amazing. I have to say, it's probably one of the best tools for me to visualize my shooting. My shooting is getting more accurate as I use it, and that relates to my accuracy at the range.
It correlates. It's not the same as dry fire. It's a little bit different.
Right.
It's not the same as live fire, but it kind of addresses things live fire or dry fire doesn't necessarily.
Right.
And so a good mix, I think, of ACE VR with normal dry fire really does help you, especially if it's hard for you to get a lot of live fire practice in, either because of cost or the logistics of getting to a range because of where you live or this or that. And, like you said, you've had it for just a week and change, and you've already shot, 1,200 rounds.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much breaking even or better on the cost of the ACE subscription, which is about $225 a year, I think, like that, which includes the gun. So you get the gun. The VR system you have to get on your own. That's on you, I guess, which is just a MetaQuest 2 or a MetaQuest 3. But like for me, I've shot over 40,000 rounds, probably close to 50,000 rounds now in a couple months. Tim Herron, he's shot like a 250,000 rounds in like 5 months or something like that. And so like it's not exactly live fire, but the feedback you're getting for the price is just crazy. Like a 250,000 rounds. That's $80,000 if you're getting something around 20 cents a round.
Yeah.
That's quick and probably slightly wrong math, but it's ballpark, right? So like it's a great tool. It's a really cool thing. And soon, now that you're set up, we can do the multiplayer mode and we can shoot together and train together, and even maybe shoot virtual matches together because those are organized by the ACE people too on their Discord channel. So it's just a cool another shooting community that we can get into.
Yeah, well, I find it to be a very useful tool. It does not replace dry fire because my pistols feel different to my hands.
Well, till you get the 3D printed
handset
one for the PDP, and then it'll be just the same.
Exactly. So I do it for so long, and then I'll go and do my actual dry fire where I'm indexing my hand to the gun like I'm used to, so I can pull up, push out, and there I am. There's my dot. I'm on target. I'm ready to go, and that's all right. It's all about feel. There's a lot of muscle memory that goes into this, and training yourself right. As you know, when I first started, I had so many things that needed fixing. My stance,
don't
my
we all?
grip,
Don't we all?
and it's coming along. I'm getting better by learning from the tips and finding out what works for me. When we shot with Tim, I had a terrible grip, and my trigger pull was not good. It's probably best that my gun broke or my holster. But
yeah, well, yeah, that's right. We did about a year ago. You came out here to New Mexico, big trip, to do a lesson with Tim Herron, and then just a month or change ago, you came out here again. So about a year has passed, and we shot a little bit together. And you also trained with my buddy Ross, who's been on the podcast before. And so you've had some instructions. So what's that been like?
I can't tell you how much I benefit from the instruction I get, because when I'm here, there's not a lot of instruction, and when I'm with you guys, whether it's Tim or Ross or you or, you know, or all of you together, everybody is seeing something a little different that, but their focus is at different things, and they're like, okay, hang on, here's something you should try this. And you know I have to remember it, and then force myself to do it that way, and get used to it. My draw was terrible, and that's because I wasn't getting my hand on the butt of the pistol the way I should. And I've completely trained myself away from what I was doing to a new style, and that you guys taught me, and it's made a lot of difference. So I one-on-one or three-on-one, instruction, I can use it, and I appreciate every bit of it because it's making me a better shooter.
I think it's a shortcut to take a lesson from, especially like a good person like Tim,
Mm-hmm.
JJ Rakaza, Ross, any of those high level guys. They'll save you a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
And
the money is well worth it.
yeah.
$600 for a weekend of training might like kind of sound like a lot, but $600 of ammo goes really fast. And
Yeah.
so I promise you're getting a return on your investment in that sense. So seek out good training.
Yeah.
Um,
When you realize that you're spraying and praying, it's time to it's time to take a lesson. And have somebody
yeah, and
show
there's
you.
a million things that would probably never occur to most people that
Mm-hmm.
they could do to improve their shooting, improve their movement, etc. So you can really short circuit that by taking a
Mm-hmm.
good class.
Yep. Yep. And have
Well,
people that
cool.
take
So,
and
no,
having
no,
people
finish
that
your
take the
thought.
time and interest in helping you improve. That's that's the key to it all. It's there's people that are interested and want to see you get better, and it's working for me. I'm 63 years old. I'm getting to be a better shooter than I ever learned how to be in the military.
Yeah. So you started
So,
later in life. You're getting better than you've ever been. It
mhm.
sounds like it's been and continues to be a fun experience for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, it's there's bumps in every road, and I hit most
Well,
of them.
I'm glad that you've gotten into it because obviously I'm obsessed about shooting. So it gives us something to talk about and communicate about, like we've done here today. So
Hmm.
that's just another benefit and a fun thing about it. So
Yeah. And you get to choose your own speed of how you do things in USPSA. You do these local matches, you do the practice matches. It's your own race. Don't worry about somebody behind you. Be safe and drive your own race. And and then you can once you're comfortable in your own skin, then you can really start pushing the boundaries. And but it's once like everything, it's a learning experience. And once you build confidence in your lessons and your abilities, you will get better.
so what would
So,
you say to any uh, new person who maybe is or is not kind of a little bit familiar with shooting, but is curious about USPSA but hasn't tried it out yet?
well, I explain it to them as best I can, and that it's very fun. It's a great way to get your pistol out of the your gun safe and use it. You can't be effective with it if you don't know how to use it or you're uncomfortable with it. It's a lot of fun. Don't try and be the big guy on campus the first day out. Absorb it, shoot your your turn, and have a great time. It's all about the fun you have. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. So let's work at it. They wouldn't usually be asking if they weren't into guns somewhat anyway or curious. So you just want to build on that and say, hey, come to the range. I'd like you to be my guest so you can see how it goes. And that's I've taken people, and that's how I meet a lot of the new shooters, whether it doesn't matter their age or gender. And I just see them; they're new, and I'll go up and introduce myself. And hey, what brought you in here? You know, it, it's camaraderie. It's fun, and it's camaraderie, and most people stay with it. There's a few that'll do it for a while and then disappear and then come back, and because they didn't realize how much they missed it. But it's I definitely tell everybody how much fun it is, and
So,
give it a whirl. It might be for you, it might not be, but you will never know if you don't try.
so go give it a try. Don't worry about being good.
Correct.
Um, if you like it, all that skill improvement can come in time. But just go ahead. Don't be afraid. The folks by and large are going to be real nice and welcoming for you. So there's
Yep.
nothing to worry about.
Yep. Then anybody that's watching you shoot, when you come back through, if they see something, they'll let you know. They're not criticizing; they're giving you tips to make you better. So it's it's a great environment. It really is. So,
Awesome. Well, Dad, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
oh, thank you for inviting me. I've had fun just chatting away.
Yeah, it's cool. Uh, I hope you have fun at your next match, whether that's the next Wednesday indoor match. Or I know you're looking at doing some matches near one of the Finger Lakes, the Canandaigua Lake, when they open up in May.
Yep.
So, whatever your next match is, I hope you have a great time. And I will stalk you on practice score and yell at you if you shoot too many penalties or too many points down. So,
Well,
um, just keep that in mind.
that's right. Well, I kind of expect it, so I just try and shoot better every time. And so, all right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks again. Have a great night.
All right. You too.